मेरा वीडियो डालो.
India inch closer to a series leveling win. They picked up 4 wickets in the morning session of day 4 of the second test at the Chepauk. This is ESPN Cricinfo Match Day, powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G. Sanjay Manjrekar with me. So too, Ian Bell, just waking up in the early hours in the United Kingdom, and who unfortunately doesn't have a happy tale as it was in the previous test match, where England were edging close to a victory around this time of that test. We'll start with you, Ian, and it's almost what we expected. The spinners continue to trouble England, and now it just seems like a matter of time.
Yeah, and you're right. It was a lot easier waking up when we were winning than now. I'd rather be asleep, I think, at the moment. Yeah, I think there's no doubt. I think coming into this innings, it was always going to be quite fascinating how England would go about it. I think India were in such a commanding position, and they've earned the right to be. I thought England might come out a little bit. I think individual players have played slightly differently. Ben Stokes was trying to grind away, and it looked like it was just all defence. Other players have come in with different frames of mind, which I thought there might be a collective team approach. But again, India have been fantastic. They've just been relentless. And the concern at the moment for me, a little bit looking at the batting line, was so heavily reliant on Joe Root scoring big runs, which is a little bit of a concern. But credit to India again. I thought they asked so many good questions. Yeah. Made it really hard for England every single step, every ball. There seemed to be something happening. So credit to India.
Yeah, that's a nice point that Ian's made, Sanjay, that even though this test match is heading in only one way, there's an opportunity for some players to put in a score and just try and reinstate a little faith in the selectors. It looks like after this test match, that point still stands. There's a big reliance here on Joe Root.
Yes, and especially in testing conditions, we saw Sidley, play a good knock in the first test match because the pitch was better and he was able to defend and survive. But here, only defense is not enough. So yes, guys with lesser ability got tested. In fact, Stokes as well failed in both innings. So let's be fair on the other players, the lesser able players. So it were tough conditions. And once India put on those runs in the first innings, and India just showed that they had better skills and better ability to play on a pitch like this. Plus, I think the big change in the Indian bowling attack has had its say as well. In the first test match, you saw that there was some relief when Ashwin was not in the attack. Shahbaz Nadeem released a bit of pressure. Washington Sundar wasn't as wasn't matching Ashwin for the pressure. But in this match, I mean, India's bowling attack, whether it's Mohammad Siraj or whether it is Akshar Patel, Kuldeep Yadav as well, just before lunch. So the pressure has been relentless, and that's made a difference, along with, of course, the surface in this test.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's great.
Yes.
So I was going to say, I think that's a great point. It just looks, this test match, India have been fantastic. There's been no drop off at all. I think all of the questions have constantly been asked. The pressure's always there, and I think that is a big difference. Yes, the surface, but I think the quality of this attack and the balance, I think India have got it absolutely spot on.
Right. Let's talk about that little contest within the contest in this first session. Stokes versus Ashwin is turning out to be a story that Ashwin's enjoying regardless of the result. There was a lot of head shaking from Ben Stokes. Was that more to do with the surface? Was it more to do with him just not being able to figure Ashwin out? Eventually, it's a 10th wicket of Ben Stokes that Ashwin has claimed in 19 innings between the two. What's going on there, Sanjay?
I think it's an English head that is shaking. So maybe you could ask the Englishman as to why. My reading, of course, Ian Bell will give us a more sort of definite answer, and he could be closer to the truth. My reading was a little bit of frustration in the surface, and also the fact that, even the first inning when he got up, he was furious with himself. It wasn't so much the pitch, and that's a champion quality. You look at Virat Kohli when he gets out, Ben Stokes as well. The shaking of head would be a combination of one. Obviously, the pitch gave him absolutely no chance. At least that's what he felt, and the fact that he got out to Ashwin again.
Ian?
Yeah, I think that was all frustration with himself. I think that this is the one thing actually that's been said and I wrote it down because I think it's got, on a pitch like this, the straight ball becomes a very dangerous delivery, and that was a straight ball actually. It didn't turn, did nothing. I think he'll be frustrated with himself. I think in his mind he's thinking, did I just let Ashwin bowl at me? Did I just play too defensive? And I think there'll be those, and it happens sometimes as a batsman. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to do the responsible thing. But actually, when you look back and you still see Joe Root playing his reverse sweep, playing his sweep shots, getting forward and back, I think Ben Stokes will probably look and go, I should have been more proactive there. And I think that's what that frustration would be about, more so than the pitch. He knows what the pitch is and actually didn't do anything. And that's the dangerous ball than the one that's turning past the outside edge, which makes it really tricky. And I think when we're in series like this is why I find it fascinating, because there's individual battles going on within a big test series. And that's why I was a bit frustrated with England changing their side so much, because Jimmy Anderson had it over a couple of the Indian batsmen. So why let that pressure go? And we're seeing now Ashwin is all over Ben Stokes. So and it's brilliant. That's the individual battles going on in this big series.
And overall,
and rather quickly, we just saw Ben Stokes bat the way he did in the first innings of the first test. I think that should be the prototype for Ben Stokes in this series. I'm sure Ahmedabad will give him a better chance to replicate that innings, but I love the way he played in that first inning, because there was a very secure defense that he employed. But every time there was a ball to hit, he didn't mind hitting the ball in the air. So it was like block, 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 and then hitting a boundary. It could be a 4 or a 6. And that could be maybe the tactic going forward as well. And in this particular innings, and Ian spot on, I think he was more unhappy with himself that he maybe just focused on defense too much. And that straight ball, it claims Sibley as well. And these are all the challenges, batsmen have on a pitch like this, because you're thinking turn, bounce, bounce, and then the straight ball gets you.
Yeah, it's a nice. Yes, carry on.
So if from India's point of view, they would much rather Ben Stokes be playing in a defensive manner than an attacking one. They have to be. I would say when I watch Ben Stokes, and I've watched him for a lot, actually his best asset is when he's positive and aggressive. Actually, defensively, he's not as good as Joe Root. Certainly against spin, so he has to be a bit more proactive at times. And I think from an India point, they would much rather Ben Stokes trying to survive than be positive and try and take the game back to India and actually get rid of some fielders, get some boundary sweepers out there, and then start rotating. So I think that plays into India's hands when they see a Ben Stokes playing like that than the more aggressive one.
I'm really enjoying this conversation, because you may seem like this test match is heading in just one way, but Ian, you could probably elaborate on this. These mini contests, they carry on in the theme of the series, and often the player that wins it ends up on the winning side of the series. And Ashwin versus Stokes, if this carries on to the next couple of test matches, you could very well see that could play a big role in just deciding the shape of the series itself.
Absolutely. There's always little contests. There's obviously, like I said, I think when you go into days like this, I mean, England probably were never going to win the game, and the likelihood of a draw was way past. So it's those individual knocks. So as a player like a Rory Burns, getting runs would have done him a lot of good going into the next test match. He's under a little bit of pressure now, there's no doubt. So you're trying to make sure you can maximise any positiveness individually and as a team you can take into the next test. And again, the more wickets Ashwin gets, the more Axar Patel, again, gets players out in this side. They're just little wins along the way that, again, individually are mounting up to a series win. So I think at the moment, India have had a great day. And as I said, England at the moment, it just feels a bit too reliant on Joe Root scoring big runs and then the other people chipping in, rather than if Joe Root misses out, who's going to go big? I think we've seen with the India batting lineup now, Sharma's got a big 100. I think actually you go down the order. Yes, they've missed out from time to time, but it's dovetailing nicely. From Ashwin at 8 getting 100, everyone in that lineup now has just got runs at some point in this series, whereas England aren't quite in that position. They're too reliant on Joe Root.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen this from Ashwin in the past, haven't we, Sanjay? He likes to take the big fish, whether it's an Alistair Cook or a Kumar Sangakkara, David Warner, Steve Smith. Recently, he thrives himself in getting that one talismanic sort of figure in the opposition out, which tends to get him going. Not that he needs any more incentive with the sort of form that he's in, but it does get Ashwin going.
And he did that same thing the last time England was here. Ben Stokes got 100 in the first test at Rajkot, if memory serves me right, a match that India drew against England, and that was a promising start. After that, he may have got out once to Jadeja and Jayant Yadav, but after that, it was just Ashwin who got the better of it. And maybe it's not just Ravichandran Ashwin's skills and his class. Sometimes the angle a certain bowler bowls with, round the wicket, Ashwin is not going to give you too much fight, go down the pitch or hit you straight, allow the batsman to go straight over the top. So those kind of challenges that just make things difficult for Ben Stokes, because every great batsman has a certain kind of, line or angle that troubles him. It doesn't matter which bowler it is. If that bowler finds that kind of angle and line of attack that troubles you, then as a batsman you're in trouble, and that is what Ashwin seems to have on Ben Stokes. And I thought Ben Stokes was looking to maybe just survive, because his defense is not bad. It's not like Ben Stokes can only survive by attacking. So he tried to do that, but Ashwin seems to every time just get the better of him.
Yeah, you saw that little graphic we just put up. He's just 2 wickets away now from a very elusive list, an achievement, 110 wicket haul in the same test match. England have 3 more wickets. Let's see if anyone can get the ball off Ashwin in this next session. He might just continue bowling from one end. Let's talk about the first wicket that he did get today, though. It was of his first ball, and Dan Lawrence was the victim. It was more about the keeping, though, than it was about the bowling, which has again triggered a very enduring discussion about whether Rishabh Pant is an improving keeper, has had a very good test match. And I'd love to know what Sanjay Manjrekar has made of this, given we've heard Sanjay's views on where he stands on the first choice keeper for India. Sanjay?
Cheeky, very cheeky, Ronak, to bring up this as part of the discussion. I said a couple of days back, or maybe yesterday, that sometimes we've just got to look at somebody and say that he kept well today, or he batted well today, or he's bowled well today. Why do we have to be so judgmental and say that, well, he's a good keeper, or he's the key for the future? Let's just say that was a good stumping by Rishabh Pant. There was a bye that he missed a little later, but that is what you're getting with Rishabh Pant. We are seeing a keeper evolve. I mean, clearly he's in the side for his batting, and that has been phenomenal. So let's just say in that session, we saw a good stumping from Rishabh Pant.
I know you stay honest to yourself. That's what I like about you, Mr. Manjrekar. But that was amazing. That was an awesome stumping. I'm not saying this as a fan of Rishabh Pant. Let's go to Ian Bell. That's a pretty neat bit of glove work, Ian.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of talk about Ben Foakes and like watching, I suppose, an old-fashioned wicketkeeper, which is his trade more than necessarily his batting. And I thought that was right up there as well with anything that Foakes did. So real great bit of work. And I agree. I think he's had a fantastic game behind the stumps. He's caught 2 great catches off the seamers, and possibly as well, I agree with what Sanjay said there. I think maybe even the batting confidence from the first test match, the way he got his runs, is nearly getting into his keeping now. And he's a young guy. He's obviously, his best years are still ahead of him, but getting runs, feeling comfortable in the side is allowing him just to relax and have some fun. And we're seeing the best out of him. But there were some great takes as well towards the end there off Axar Patel. Good pace, left arm spin and ripping past the outside. And he looks like, again, he was enjoying it. So, but he's had a very good test match behind the stumps. There's no doubt we've already said it, a tough pitch to keep on, bat on and umpire on. So he's had a good game.
On a very serious note, though, Sanjay, I think there's not as much debate about Pant, the batsman. Even those that are critical of his keeping would say, yeah, you could still. There's a case for him to play as a batsman. On a serious note, keeping can improve, can't it? Can you relate to examples of players that you've watched, observed, played alongside, of players that improved significantly as keepers when given opportunity? It
would be Mahendra Singh Dhoni. I think he ended up becoming the safest keeper that Indian cricket has seen. But we've seen a lot of keepers from India who weren't as good. Let's take the example of, say, Parthiv Patel, who also was in the side because he had this spunky attitude towards batting, batted at the top of the order sometimes in test matches when India struggled to find an opener. So he played for those qualities, but his keeping, I see that improving too much. So India have had keepers who have been very good to begin with and have stayed good, like the Kiran Mores and Nayan Mongia. But after that, there have been keepers who have been there in the team because they've had this, batting support, and not necessarily because they've been brilliant keepers. And I haven't seen them improve dramatically. Mahendra Singh Dhoni is the only example that comes to my mind. Saha started off being a good keeper and continued to be a good keeper. And in the past, Syed Mustafa Hussain Kirmani was one of India's very best, and he remained top class right through.
And what about your experiences, Belly? England have gone through their share as well, haven't they? Of just finding the ideal keeper-batsman balance.
I think you're right. It's about the balance, and I can think of 2 really. I mean, again, like we'll say that probably Ben Foakes is the best keeper in England at the moment, and there's probably been a lot of those. We've been a lot of traditional county cricket outstanding keepers that bat 9, 10, 11. Problem is, you want a balance, don't you? You want somebody that's going to score you runs and keep, and we probably have over time. You edge towards the better batsman, and the keeping will work on it and make him a better. And I can still think of Matt Pryor when he started with England. Yes, he was a very good keeper. He got so much better by the end. He was the best I ever played with. But his runs, he averaged 40 with the bat. So
yeah.
his runs were just as valuable as his keeping. And his keeping, yes, he might have started off and he said himself, he improved so much. And Josh Butler's another one. Josh Butler, his improvement in his glove work in the last 12 months has been huge. But when he first started, he wasn't the best keeper. But he was a game changer with the bat. So you've got to get the right balance. And I do see Pant is a match winner. We saw it in the first test match. He can change a game. So he's worth I think he's worth the persistence with. But again, standing up, he's had like I said, he's had a great game with the gloves. But he's the modern day keeper, isn't he? The fact of going for your best wicket keeper now who bats 10-11 doesn't exist anymore. You're looking for the guy that's balancing your team. We're talking about Ashwin as an all-rounder, Panton as an all-rounder. It balances the side. You can play an extra seamer, an extra spinner, because you have these guys who fit that all-rounder role.
Ronak?
Yes, Sanjay.
I just missed out on a very important name as I was talking about the keepers who have played for India. And Dinesh Karthik is another keeper that played for India. And he also was selected more for his batting. There's another interesting side to keeping, especially in test matches, because it's a tough job. 2 days of keeping and you'll get 1 head. If you drop that, you had a bad day or a bad match as the keeper. So temperament becomes a very important quality for a keeper to be good or improve on. And Mahendra Singh Dhoni had that kind of calm demeanor, calm temperament. I find some similarity between Dinesh Karthik and Rishabh Pant temperamentally. And both of them were, he's not so much like a cat on a hot tin roof, but Rishabh Pant, you can see, gets very involved in the action and how the batsman is playing. So very often the batsman misses because he's so engrossed in the action. He's got a say about what line somebody's bowling. He's also looking at the field. So he's not somebody who will keep focusing on one aspect that a keeper does. Is that expect the ball to come to at all times and forget everything else. So that particular quality he may not have. But as Ian mentioned, we live in times in cricket where we are looking at the balance of a team. So if you've got 6, top class batsmen, maybe you would go for a better keeper. But when you're slightly, especially overseas, India have never been confident about the batting lineup. So Rishabh Pant gets a nod.
I think the well with keeping as well, the beauty as well is that, again, it's like batting, or what you when you're an international keeper, you're going to go to different conditions. So all of a sudden you're playing in Australia where you get the nice carry, and in England soon, for some reason with the Duke's ball at Lords, it will start the after bat swing all of a sudden to a seamer. So there's so many different things you have to deal with. And I think after 12 or 18 months of doing it around the world, I think you'll become a better keeper for that experience. But like I said, the challenge on this pitch, all of a sudden to Lords in a few months' time, will be completely different. Like I said, for some reason in England, the ball just swings after the bat to a keeper, and it's just completely bizarre.
Yeah, you remember Dhoni on his first tour to England, 2007. After that, how he improved significantly as a keeper.
Rishabh as well. Last trip, if you remember, he was diving around and he was trying his best, and everyone had full sympathy for him. England is a tough place, especially for Asian keepers.
Yep. All right. Great conversation. This on wicket keeping with Ian Bell and Sanjay Manjrekar. I must say, Mr. Manjrekar has a little experience himself behind the stumps, doesn't he? So it's not like we speak without the experience. Ian Bell ever took the gloves on? I'm sure in your long career you have at some point.
No, I was at short leg and silly point. I didn't work it out. I should have worked it out a lot quicker and got out of there quicker.
Ashish Kapoor.
Yes,
Carl Hooper, Mohali Test match. Ashish Kapoor's first Test wicket, stumped brilliantly by Sanjay Manjrekar as Carl Hooper went down the pitch, and the ball came in between the bat and the body, just like Ben Foakes. Brilliant stumping that we had in the first. Sanjay Manjrekar did the same in Mohali. I'm talking about the keeper. This is not. I'm not sort of taking credit for him. This is Sanjay Manjrekar, the keeper.
Yeah, this is the sort of fun we can have when we have this sort of chat show where the game is heading in one way. We know exactly what to discuss. We can indulge in ourselves, if not other things. We speak of temperament. I tell you what, temperament for Kuldeep Yadav would have been a big test as well. You don't know what the bigger challenge is: not playing in the 11 or playing in the 11 and not getting a bowl when your team's on top on the 4th day on a turning track.
A bit unfair that Ishant Sharma got a bowl before him. Really, that was terribly unfair on Kuldeep.
And then he gets a ball, has a chance to get Joe Root, make instant impact, and Siraj puts him down. Did get a wicket at the end of it, but you feel a little bit for Kuldeep Yadav, don't you, Sanjay?
Yes, you do. And, you've got to admire these young cricketers. They don't get deflated or they don't look defeated or, I'm not getting my bowling. A couple of years back, I was the first choice overseas spinner. I didn't get a game in Australia and all that stuff. And he comes here as well. And Ishant Sharma getting that spell before him was must have been heartbreaking for Kuldeep Yadav. But he comes in, he's got his body behind the first ball. He gets another good one to Joe Root, and something about simple catches these days, Ronak.
Yeah, just that. They just keep going down. Ian.
Yeah, well, it's as if, like, saying to you, it's not fair. Like, it's as if Siraj had enjoyed watching Joe Root. I'll have a little bit more of Joe Root. Keep going. He's nice to watch back. So it felt like it was a little bit like that. But I think, look, I'm really chuffed for him to get a wicket at the end. He's deserved it. Like I said, it's been tough. Yeah. But I think as well, it shows. Like, everyone says, "Oh, we'll play 3 spinners," but actually, it's quite hard to get all 3 spinners bowling enough overs anyway, even on a turning wicket like this, because you've obviously got your Axar Patel's just been so suited to this pitch with his height, his pace. So it's not always easy, is it? Just automatically say we're going to play 3 spinners and they all get a big bowl or a long bowl. It doesn't always work like that.
Yeah.
See, if he would have played in the company of Shahbaz Nadeem, like it happened in the first test, maybe Kuldeep Yadav would have had more for both. So Akshar Patel's, potency and how well he's bowled has meant that Kuldeep Yadav has got lesser overs. But let's face it, I think what we've seen from Kuldeep Yadav in this test match on these kind of pitches, and we've seen bowl on other pitches as well. Overseas, he's got 5-wicket hauls. And clear to see that when the pitch is better, I think he's somebody you can call a good pitch bowler. And the pitch has a bit of hardness and bounce, especially in places like South Africa and Australia. He's the spinner to go to. On Rank Turner, there are a few queuing up before him.
All right, fair enough. Let's pick up this conversation in what is likely to be the last session of this test match. 3 wickets for India to get. Sanjay Manjrekar and Ian Bell will join us then. We have a test match to look back upon and a series that would be level to look ahead to. Joe Root still there. Ashwin looking for that elusive achievement of 10 wickets and 100 in the same test. So keep an eye out for all that and join us then for post-match analysis on ESPN Cricinfo Match Day, powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G.